No one tells women what happens to desire after 35. They talk about confidence. They talk about self-love. They talk about knowing what you want. But they don't talk about the shift, the quiet one, the irreversible one. Before we go deeper, hit subscribe and like the video. This is DepthRealm, where we expose the patterns people would rather deny. Desire doesn't disappear after 35. It mutates, and that mutation catches most women completely unprepared. In your 20s, desire feels external. It arrives without effort. It follows you into rooms. It floods your phone. It rewards minimal investment with maximum feedback. Your nervous system learns a dangerous lesson early. Attention is normal. In your early 30s, desire becomes conditional. You still receive it, but now you have to cure it. You choose outfits more carefully. You manage your presence. You negotiate between attraction and stability. You begin to notice that attention requires maintenance. After 35, desire becomes selective. Not just for men, for women too. And that's where the shock begins. Because women were never taught that desire is not a constant. They were taught it was an identity. Something they are, not something that changes. The female brain adapts to abundance the same way any system does. It normalizes it. It stops valuing it. It mistakes frequency for permanence. So when abundance narrows, the nervous system panics. After 35, women don't lose desire. They lose leverage. And leverage is what made desire feel effortless. The dating market doesn't collapse overnight. It recalibrates silently. The men who approach change. The men who commit change. The men who tolerate change. High-value men stop chasing potential. They start selecting for peace, for emotional regulation, for long-term compatibility. And women who spent their prime years optimizing excitement rather than stability feel the shift immediately. Not intellectually, somatically. The text slow. The attention fragments. The energy changes. And instead of being told the truth, women are fed reassurance. You're still a catch. You just haven't met the right one. Men are intimidated. But reassurance doesn't regulate the nervous system. Understanding does. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. After 35, desire moves away from novelty and toward alignment. Men stop prioritizing chemistry spikes. They prioritize predictability, cooperation, and emotional safety. And women who trained their identity around being desired rather than being aligned feel disoriented. Because desire after 35 is not about attraction alone. It's about return on investment. Men start asking questions they didn't ask before. What does life look like with her? Does she bring peace or pressure? Does she add stability or volatility? Is she emotionally regulated or reactive? Is she cooperative or competitive? These questions are not romantic, but they decide everything. Women aren't ready for this shift because they were never taught that desire ages differently for men and women. Men's desire becomes more disciplined with age. Women's desire becomes more urgent. Men gain leverage through time. Women lose it. Not because women lose value. Because the market changes. In your 20s, desire is given. In your 40s, desire is chosen. And being chosen requires traits that attention never trained. Softness, patience, emotional accountability, receptivity, stability, traits that were labeled optional when attention was abundant. So women enter their late 30s with resumes instead of relational skills, with boundaries instead of warmth, with independence instead of intimacy. They did everything right according to the culture. And yet, desire feels thinner. This is where the internal conflict begins. Women say they want peace, but their nervous systems crave intensity. They say they want stability, but calm feels dull after years of emotional stimulation. They say they want commitment, but commitment feels risky when leverage is shrinking. So they oscillate, They date the stable man and feel bored. They crave the exciting man and feel anxious. They bounce between safety and stimulation, unable to integrate the two. This isn't immaturity. It's conditioning. Desire after 35 exposes what you trained your nervous system to expect. If you trained it on chaos, calm feels empty. If you trained it on validation, silence feels threatening. If you trained it on attention, partnership feels restrictive. And here's the brutal part. Men notice. They notice when a woman is dating from urgency rather than openness. They notice when standards are driven by fear instead of alignment. They notice when interest feels like evaluation instead of attraction. And men do not open under assessment. They withdraw. So women feel rejected not because they are unwanted, but because desire has become conditional on traits they were never encouraged to develop. This is why so many women after 35 say dating feels exhausting. Because they are negotiating with a market that no longer rewards the strategies that once worked. And instead of recalibrating desire, many double down. They raise standards without increasing contribution. They demand certainty without offering peace. They want reassurance without vulnerability. And that creates resistance. Men don't reject women after 35. They reject emotional imbalance. They reject unresolved chaos. They reject volatility masked as passion. They reject entitlement disguised as standards. This is where the story gets uncomfortable. Women after 35 often believe they're losing men to younger women. They're not. They're losing men to less complicated energy. Men don't want youth as much as they want ease. Youth just often comes with fewer emotional negotiations. And when a woman carries resentment toward time, dating, men, or her past, it leaks. It shows up as defensiveness, as impatience, as hyperanalysis, as subtle hostility. Desire suffocates in that environment. The most dangerous myth women believe after 35 is that desire should still respond to confidence alone. Confidence without softness feels aggressive. Confidence without curiosity feels closed. Confidence without humility feels transactional. And transactional energy kills attraction. Desire after 35 is slower, quieter, more selective. It doesn't chase. It observes. And women who try to force it feel rejected by something they don't understand. This is where loneliness creeps in, not because women lack options, but because the options that remain require emotional maturity rather than appeal. Women were told to invest in careers, independence, and self-sufficiency. All valuable. But they were not told to invest in relational fluency. How to regulate emotion. How to create safety. How to soften without submission. How to attract through presence rather than performance. So after 35, desire feels like a foreign language. The men who want to build don't want to chase. The men who chase don't want to build. And women feel stuck between two worlds. Here's the part no one prepares them for. Desire after 35 requires letting go of identity. Letting go of being the prize. Letting go of leverage. Letting go of competition. Letting go of control. And stepping into reciprocity. That feels like loss to someone trained to win. But desire is not a victory. It's an exchange. The women who adapt do something radical. They stop performing independence. They stop negotiating attraction. They stop testing men for reassurance. They recalibrate their nervous systems for peace instead of adrenaline. They become softer, not weaker. More open, not less selective. More present, not less powerful. And suddenly desire returns. Not loudly, not desperately, but steadily. The women who don't adapt blame the world. They say men are broken. They say dating is dead. They say love isn't real anymore. But love didn't disappear. It matured. And maturity requires traits attention never taught. After 35, desire doesn't reward who you were. It responds to who you've become. And women who aren't ready for that shift feel punished. Not because they did something wrong, but because they were never told the rules changed. This is the truth no one shares. Desire after 35 is less forgiving, less reactive, less performative. But it is deeper, more stable, more real. And the women who understand this don't panic when attention fades. They evolve. Because once desire changes, chasing the past only guarantees disappointment. And once you see that pattern, you can't unsee it. See the pattern. Protect your energy. This is DepthRealm.